What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. In this video, I want to break down 20 first-time homebuyer tips that work for here in Santa Barbara or really any market. If you're looking to buy a home someday, this video is for you. I want to jump in. I've helped a lot of first-time buyers throughout the years. I really want to give you guys some tips that you can execute, whether you're buying your first home next month, whether you're saving up to buy your first home someday down the road. So with all that being said, let's jump right into the first top 20 tips. Let's go. Okay, let's start off with tip number 1. I want you to come up with a long-term game plan. When I help clients buy their first home, I like to educate them and help them become like a seasoned real estate investor. And does that mean you're buying your first home that you're gonna live in forever? Or is it just gonna be a starter condo that's gonna help catapult you to that home with the pool and the tennis court? It's really good to understand what your game plan is long-term, knowing how long you're gonna be in your area, knowing if you have a job that's rooted or that's centered in the area, or if you might get a job transfer and it could maybe have you leave. When you're buying a home, you wanna really be knowing that you're gonna be living in that area for, I would say, at least the next 2 or 3 years. So that's really important to understand first before getting into any of the intricacies and what it takes to buy a home. Is you really wanna understand the game plan long-term. Step number 2, it's really important to start to learn financial literacy, understand your savings goal, and understand your credit. Most first-time home buyers, they're gonna be buying a property with a loan. When you have a good credit score, you pay way less for the same loan as someone with a bad credit score. You usually need over a 620 to get a loan anyway, so it's really good to understand what it takes to get that credit score. Credit Karma is a great tool that's free and can look at your individual situation and show you how to build your score. But well before you buy that house, you really wanna optimize your credit so you're not gonna have to pay a lot when it comes to getting a loan. Okay, let's go to tip number 3. This might be one of the most important tip of the whole 20. I want you to interview a rock solid realtor who's really on your same page. I tell my clients it's important to interview a realtor like it's someone like a financial manager, someone who's gonna really have your best interest in mind. You wanna look at their Zillow reviews, you wanna understand how much experience they have, you wanna understand if they're hyper local to the area. It's so important to select a really great realtor because there's a lot of realtors in the business that do it part-time, that don't know the area, that might not have your best interest in mind. And when it comes to making one of the biggest financial decisions you're ever gonna make, like buying a house, it's so important to have a rock solid realtor on your side. Me and my team have fantastic realtor connections with all around the nation. If you have questions or if you're in a different market and you want a recommendation, we oftentimes know someone really good. So it's just so important well before you even start shopping, before you're going to open houses, before you're making offers, you want to have a realtor that's got your back and that has a great track record and really knows the area. Okay, the next step after you found a great realtor, you want to find a great hyper-local lender. You want to start to run some numbers and understand different scenarios. A lender is going to look at how much that home is actually going to cost. Whether it's a $500,000 condo or $1 million house, you want to know exactly how much that's going to cost monthly, how much your down payment options are going to be, if there's HOAs associated or other costs, and the lenders will even run what the property taxes are. So that gives you a really detailed breakdown of what you can afford and what's actually a comfortable budget. The next tip, which is piggybacking off of that, is make sure your lender runs a full estimate for you and shows you an exampled breakdown of that purchase price. You know, you can show them a property with a specific HOA or in a certain area, and they can run and show you exactly how much that property would cost monthly with different down payment options, how much it will cost with property tax, with HOA fees. So well before you're actually shopping or going to those open houses, you can see what's a comfortable payment, how much money you have to bring down to the table. And also they can be great at long-term game planning because maybe you don't have enough money saved down for the down payment option that's probably the best fit for you, but knowing that well in advance will help you plan long-term so you can get there eventually. Okay, this is tip number 6, and it's still kind of on the lending front. I want you to really understand the different down payment options and the different loan programs that are out there. You know, if you've been in the military, you can do the VA loan, which oftentimes is zero money down. Such a great option. Obviously, it's for only those who are veterans. But there's also FHA loan programs, which are oftentimes 3.5% down. There's 10% down, 20% down options. You can even go higher than that if you want a lower monthly payment. When you're working with your lender, you want to look at all the different options and just see what the best fit is for you. Because before you're going and shopping for the home of your dreams and the area of your dreams, you really want to know the loan type, the loan program, the options that are the best fit for you and your family. And like I said, it's so good to do early in the process because then you can plan and game plan and understand that, yeah, if you do bring at least 20% down to the table, you don't have to pay PMI, which is an additional added cost. It's just really good to know these things up front before you find the house of your dreams and then you're scrambling to try to get your numbers in order. order. Okay, tip number 7. This one goes not just for home buyers, but this is really for everybody. And this is, you want to save money and don't spend money on dumb. I know it sounds simple and it sounds like, of course, your parents have probably told you this, but when it comes to saving up to buy your first house, you really want to understand that the more money you can bring to the table, the better situation you're going to be in and the more home you can afford. And that might mean, you know, spending less money out to eat, buying less random luxury or designer goods. But it's really important to understand once you get into a home and you're not paying rent anymore, you're going to be gaining appreciation every year, and you're really going to be setting yourself up and your family for a safe, comfortable financial future. So sometimes that means you're gonna spend less money on vacations or spend less money on stuff you don't need, but I really think it's a good tip to keep in the back of your mind when you're prepping to buy your first house. If it's not a need to have item for you and your family, it might just be worth waiting a little while until you have the house and you can maybe spend some money on some other stuff that's not a need to have, because it's really important when you're trying to save money for a down payment, which is not cheap. You want to really be focused on what you need to have and what's just a nice to have, and don't spend money on dumb. So tip number 8, you've got a lot of basics down now, and now you're going to start to think about what type of home you want. And I really want you to be specific when it comes to your home search, and I want you to think about the non-negotiables, the nice to haves, and the need to haves. Do you need to live close to the beach? Or is it just nice to have a basketball court or a tennis court? Once you create that list of the things that you really want to focus on, it helps you and your realtor team understand the specific types of properties that are the best fit for you. Of course, it would be great to find a house that has all the nice to haves, all the need to haves, and is within your budget. But when you're really breaking down what's super important for you and your family, whether that's school district, location, property type, property condition, it helps you understand and be more specific when it comes to your search, and that's going to help you save a lot of time, energy, and focus. Okay, tip number 9, jumping off of that straight point, is that you want to lock in the area that's really important to you, or the areas that you're looking in. You know, it's really important to save time and save energy, because sometimes you'll find a great house, but if it's not in the area, like what we say in real estate, location, 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 you really want to be specific with your areas that you're searching in, so you can understand that you can drill down to those areas and really find the house that suits your needs. I mean, if you're all right with doing a longer commute, it's good to look outside of the areas, because you sometimes, you know, in Santa Barbara, if you're out of the area a little bit more, you can get more bang for your buck, same as in other markets. But if you're really looking for a specific school district, a specific location, a specific proximity to parks, beaches, restaurants, you really want to make sure that your search is dialed into those parameters, because when you're more specific, when something pops up that really checks those boxes, you're more likely to lock into it and be able to strike quickly, rather than if you're just seeing every new home that's coming on the market. Sometimes it's just information overload for you and your realtor team. So the more specific you can be, the better. Tip number 10, we're halfway through, guys, is do not max out your budget on your first home. This is really my true recommendation, and I've seen it go both ways. But when you have your pre-approval, let's say your max budget is $1 million. If you max out your budget and something was to go wrong, injury, loss of job transfer, because it's your first home, it's probably going to require a lot of your savings and a lot of your initial money that you've been saving your whole life. When you max out your budget, you have less to fall back on. And I think it's really important to understand it's always good to have a 6-month savings reserve. It's always good to have a backup plan in case anything happens. You know, God forbid there's a, flood or fire at the property and you need to go through insurance to try to figure out, how much money you're going to get back, if you're going to sell the property, if you're going to rebuild. When you don't max out your budget and you still have a little nest egg for an emergency situation, you're just leaving yourself off for, a better potential bounce back if something bad is to happen. It's always good to play it safe, have a plan B, keep some money on the sideline just in cash in case something happens. And that's why I don't think you should max out your budget, even though obviously it's great to go for the house that has it all. If you can sacrifice a little bit, that's your first house and it might not be your forever house. It's going to be the springboard oftentimes to that next bigger, more exciting house. Saving a little bit up front and not maxing out your budget is a really good call. Next tip, if you're thinking about doing a fixer project, you really want to understand the ins and outs. A lot of first-time buyer clients come to me and they like the idea of doing a fixer and the idea of being able to make something their own. But here's a couple things to consider when it comes to buying a house that needs to be totally fixed up. The first is oftentimes you need to have that money available for all the renovation costs. And renovation's expensive. Yeah, you could probably, do paint yourself or do some minor fixes yourself, but when it comes to a kitchen remodel, a bathroom remodel, doing flooring installation, other work on the interior electrical plumbing, it usually takes a pro who's oftentimes very expensive. It's good to understand the cost of that. Maybe talk to your realtor who can introduce you to some general contractors so you can understand the cost breakdown, because I've helped clients do major fixers for their first time buy, but oftentimes it's better to have a house that's maybe a little bit dated that you could fix up little by little, because you're gonna have to have all that cash ready, unless you do like a construction loan, which is pretty complex, but you're gonna have to have those fees and costs associated ready to pay up front. You're gonna have to know the timing. You might not be able to live in the property. So if you really wanna do a fixer for your first home, you need to understand the ins and outs and really be on the same page with a realtor, and also have a great contractor in mind. So just keep that in mind if you're really starstruck on doing a whole total renovation for your first purchase. Okay, tip number 12. This is for my really savvy first-time buyers. I help a lot of young buyers execute this plan, and this is what's called house hacking. I want you to consider this option. It might not be the best option for you and your family, but this is an option where, let's say you're renting a house and you live with 3 roommates. Could you potentially buy a house and bring 1 or 2 or 3 of those roommates with you to help you offset the mortgage? Have you ever thought about potentially buying a duplex where you could rent or Airbnb that other unit? I think it's a good idea to just at least consider, talk with your realtor and your team about, could you potentially do some house hacking options for your first house? This is gonna allow you to make passive income right off the bat. This is gonna allow you to offset your mortgage oftentimes. And oftentimes in like a duplex or a multi-unit situation, you can do a primary home loan up to 4-unit property. It allows you to stretch your budget because you can use the income from the other 1, 2, or 3 units to help you qualify for more. So yes, this might not be the right fit for everybody. A lot of times when people or young couples are buying their first home, they really wanna have their own privacy. They don't want roommates, but this is something to consider, and at least just look with your realtor team is, could you potentially do a house hacking option? It could be the springboard. You might only be at the house for 2 or 3 years until you get your next one. So something to consider. House hacking. ADUs are another great option. Auxiliary dwelling units, where oftentimes here in California and Santa Barbara, people turn their garage into a 1-bed studio. Just an option to consider, a little extra tip for those savvy buyers who want to make passive income and you put that real estate investor cap on. We're on to step 12. I want you to understand the paperwork and the offer process. Oftentimes my clients, I'll run through the paperwork and just kind of how it works, understand the contingency periods, how to write an offer. Here in Santa Barbara, 3% is the earnest money deposit, which is due within 3 days of opening escrow. I oftentimes walk through my clients through the paperwork. Everything is done on DocuSign. It's all digital and super easy, but it's good to know kind of the ins and outs of what writing an offer is like before you write an offer, because I've seen it or heard it from other people where they're ready to go, they find a house they love, they need to move quickly, and then they are very confused and have all these questions and feel overwhelmed by the paperwork when it comes to writing an offer. So when you do that up front, it can really help you save time, feel more comfortable, and ready to go when the house of your dreams presents itself and you're ready to write an offer. Tip number 14, I want you to really study the market with your realtor team. It's really good even when you're, let's say, a year out from buying, once you've kind of decided on the area, the property type, you can stay in touch with your realtor. On my website, you can heart properties, which will show you what they end up selling for. So you can see if the condo that was priced at $700,000 in your favorite complex, if it sells for more than it was listed for, or maybe less than it was listed for. Oftentimes I check in with the realtors when something sells to see how many offers it gets. Oftentimes there's negotiations and seller credits. Once you really study the market and feel comfortable about the area, the property type, then when you're shopping, you're gonna know pretty quickly if something's a good deal and a good buy, or if something's way overpriced and you might wanna wait to see if they'll come down. My next tip is I really want you to understand the offer strategy. When you write an offer, there's a lot of negotiables in the offer. Obviously you can write the price is all negotiable. The terms are also negotiable. How long you have for your inspections, if you're gonna be asking for a home warranty paid for by the seller, certain closing costs. There's so much negotiation going in, and once you're on the same page with your realtor and your realtor team, you'll know that if a home is gonna get multiple offers, you have to be aggressive and strong with your offer strategy. But if a home has been sitting on the market 30 days, 45 days, 90 days, you can maybe ask for a little bit more up front. You can cut off, a chunk of the price. You can ask for a longer inspection period, a longer close. But understanding how the strategy works when it comes to a negotiation is really important so that you can be successful when you're ready to negotiate. Okay, here we go. Tip number 16. When you have a property under contract, that means the seller has accepted your offer and you are opened and in escrow, I want you to be very diligent when it comes to inspections. Inspections are so important. That's the time period where we get professionals into the house or the condo or the apartment and make sure that everything is in good shape. When you're buying a condo, it's good to understand what the association covers, like the roof. Oftentimes they cover the sewer lateral, they cover exterior maintenance. But when you're buying a single family home, all of those expenses are going to be yours. So you want to make sure that you have the roof inspected, the sewer lateral line inspected. You want to have a general inspector that looks at the appliances, the structure, potential issues like mold. And if you find an issue from the general inspector, maybe call something out like an electrical issue, my team and I, we always get a professional to get second opinion and potentially even a bid on it. Because if you find a lot wrong with the home, you have a couple of options. You can back out and go try to find a different property, or you can get to work negotiating to see if the seller will credit a big chunk of those fixes. But it's always good to know exactly what you're getting yourself into when it comes to buying your first house. You don't want to close and then realize you have a $100,000 foundation job you had no idea about. Next tip, just piggybacking off that last one, is I want you to be able to understand the negotiation process when you're in escrow. If a property has been on the market a long time and you find out that it maybe needs a new roof, there's a good chance you could get a big chunk of that paid for by the seller. You know, they were trying to sell for a long time. They might have not had any offers besides yours. They're highly motivated and they don't want you to back out. On the other hand, let's say a super hot property comes on the market, it gets 5 offers, but you and your realtor team are able to secure it and it's yours. There might not be as much negotiating power there. You want to be really strategic with what you ask for, because if you upset the sellers, you might not get any credit. And yeah, it's still your option if you want to go forward and close on the property, but understanding your leverage and your negotiating power when under contract is super, super important. Okay, the next tip, when you're under contract, I really want you to be patient. Oftentimes, escrows can be delayed. There's a lot of paperwork involved. There's the inspection process involved. There's a lot of back and forth. And oftentimes, the inspections and the back and forth and negotiations and general mistakes by the escrow company, which are common, can lead to a delayed closing. You really want to understand, you don't want to schedule your move date when you're just opened escrow, because the closing could be delayed. And honestly, sometimes we even close early if both parties agree to it. But having patience and understanding it's a long process. In Santa Barbara, the average escrow is about 30 days. Sometimes it's a little bit longer, sometimes it's a little bit quicker, but being patient, understanding the timelines, having your realtor making sure you're checking in with them and knowing if it's going to be delayed or if everything looks on time is really important, so you can kind of schedule the last finishing pieces before you get the keys. Okay, we're on tip number 19. So I want to pretend like you closed on the house, you got the keys, you're so stoked. I want you to be prepared for the moving costs and also the costs that are associated with refurnishing a new home. Moving is not cheap, whether it's, even just you doing a U-Haul, or if you're getting a company to do everything for you, put it in boxes. Understand the different moving options out there. The more you do yourself, the more money you save, but it can be a pain in the neck to move a lot of big furniture. And also understand how much money you have saved to buy new furniture. Can you be cost effective on your first home and maybe find some stuff on Facebook or at thrift stores? Understand your budget, because brand new furniture, you can go super maxed out and get a lot of beautiful pieces, but furniture doesn't appreciate in value. Secondhand furniture sells for like half of what it's originally worth. Understanding a clean budget and having a game plan of how much you want to spend after the keys are yours is really important as well. Just something to consider when you're under contract and even before buying the first home, is what's the next steps and how much money do you have saved to bring that home to life? And what's something you need to get right away, obviously like a bed, and what's something you can maybe wait on, a 70-inch TV if you already have a 50-inch. It's good to keep that in mind for sure. Okay, we've made it to tip number 20. Here's my last tip. I want you to start planning your next purchase even after you bought your first home. Sometimes that means you want to buy an investment property out of state, maybe an Airbnb in a place you love to travel, like a ski town or in Hawaii. Once you have that first property, you've been through the process, now you're a more seasoned home buyer. It's important to think about what's next, what's your time horizon. If you're in a smaller condo, but you're planning on having a family, how long do you want to wait before you buy that next home? Obviously, it's going to take another down payment. It's going to take more scouting and time searching and maybe finding a great realtor in another location. But it's really important to think, what is your time horizon? This is tying all the way back into that first step. I want you to have that game plan in mind. So okay, I just bought my first condo, but I really want a house in the next 3 years. How much do I need to save? How much am I gonna put down? Kind of a repeating cycle. And I really try to teach my clients to be real estate investors and not just, the homeowner who wants the shiny, nice stainless steel fridge. How can you think about it from an investment standpoint? Because real estate is a rock solid investment. You're gonna see, from my clients who bought in houses 2 or 3 years ago, sometimes they've made $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in appreciation. And it's important to think about what are their next steps, what are their next options when it comes to buying that next house. So you go from buying your first house to buying your next one, and maybe before long you have 10 properties under management and you get to retire. Okay guys, so that was my 20 tips for first-time home buyers. Jump in the comments if you have questions or let me know what I should do next. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content just like this, and I'll see you on the next one. Avi out.